Now, why are so many of your stories in the first person?
Because I immerse myself into the scenario. And so what happens is that's the voice that usually naturally arrives. And particularly when I was starting out as a writer, that was very important. And that was the way I could convince myself of the credibility or the reality of the scenario I was working through. So I was pretty much living the story as I was writing it.
There's some wonderful images in your stories. I love the listening to the green radio out on the Saskatchewan prairie. You know, it's great.
Yeah, well, that actually came from a dream. I remember when, as a teenager, just this idea. It was very vivid. I still remember it. This kid sort of around this radio and is getting this signal from a distant planet. We're coming from a solar system with 78 planets. Blah, 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 blah. And that was pretty much just that image of the dream. And it's always stuck with me, and I wanted to use it in some way. And
yeah, it's great.
I got to grow up. One of the things that did come from my childhood, and that was my father was a microbiologist at the Prairie Regional Laboratory at University of Saskatchewan, and every weekend almost, when I was at a certain age, about between 5 and 7, he would take me, because he would go there because it was fun. You had to go to the lab. I basically had my personal science center, which was pretty awesome. Playing the test tubes, and they had these little rocks you put under the fluorescent light, and they would glow and stuff. And it was great fun. And watch all the mysterious scientific gadgets, the oscillators and the beakers that would shake things, and the mutant monsters they were building. No, they weren't doing that.
You put your hands on things and your hair flew out.
We didn't have anything like that. No, we'd be scared of that. But there was a lot of weird equipment and stuff that it was, again, maybe that whole immersive aspect. Is a lot of kids got to us and they watched Star Trek or Lost in Space. They got to see people touching, computers or oscilloscopes and things. I actually got to touch the controls and stuff, and that was neat. That was very neat.
This complaint you have about Lost in Space being terrible.
It was pretty bad, yeah. But
I think you should.
I always wanted one of those silver jumpsuits, though.
Wasn't Robin Ward in that? Was Robin Ward in that?
No, that's the Starlost.
Oh, Starlost, yes.
The Starlost. We almost bought a house from a cameraman who worked on the Starlost. Yeah, I bought this house in overtime for that show.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding.
It was a disaster. And the Starlost broke my heart because I remember that summer was a very bad summer. 73 was a very miserable summer for me. And I remember thinking, well, you know what? And I heard about this show. That's Cara DeLay from 2001. Douglas Trumbull's a special effects guy from 2001. And Silent Running is an Andromeda. All my favorite movies is doing the special effects. And they got, and Harlan Ellison, who I had ambivalent views on, but, at least he knew about science fiction. And I thought, well, that's great. And I remember my sister and I were watching it that Friday night when it came on, and she was making fudge. And something went wrong with the recipe, and the fudge wouldn't harden. And I felt like the show and the fudge were the same thing. They just didn't come together. But I remember struggling. I like it. It could be good. It could be good, And so and each week we sort of hoping it would get better, and it just never did.
No. Well,
You were in it, weren't you?
No. We didn't have pajamas big enough. But it was out in CFTO, and we were doing Funny Farm at the same time down in another studio, and just watching these guys dragging themselves into work, you had a sense this was not a happy place.
No, yeah.
So
it's very interesting because the arc, Trumbull quit very quickly because apparently he'd miscalculated and didn't realize that the lighting needed for videotape, which they made it on, was a lot brighter than they used for film, and it started melting his models. And so they had to rush out. They had a bunch of sort of terrible shots of the giant Earthship arc. A lot of them were shot in the McLuhan Planetarium because basically on super.
Now about to be a condo.
Yeah, but they basically on Super 8 because that's all they could afford, and that's why it looks all murky and terrible. But it's interesting because the model, most of it is now in Buffalo, being used by the planetarium there for their star shows and stuff. They've got components.
I should tell you that that's not true.
Oh.
The problem of them needing more light.
Oh.
It's the fact that the CFTO technicians, hockey lighters, decided that it's not bright enough because they didn't look at the monitors, they were looking at the scopes. So.
Oh, really?
That's the issue.
Well, that makes me feel better about Douglas Trumbull. Then.
Yes, that's the issue. He didn't
genius.
miscalculate anything. It's just that once
good.
it got up to Canada to deal with the people who basically buy beer and drive trucks.
So I was right.
Who became technicians.
I was right.
Yes, that's
so
the issue.
The average Canadian goes and ruins what could have been my favorite show.
Yes.
No wonder I hate them.
So another reason for misanthropy north of the 40s.
That was just such a disappointing experience, that show.
No, it's when in doubt, it's rarely the creative person's problem.
Well, it was just sad.
Says the creative person.
It was sad. It was sad. But I do actually have the DVD set, and I occasionally have made you watch it, haven't I, Sam?
Yes.
What do you think of it?
Thanks, Dad.
It's boring.
Well, that's the other thing. The other thing is, at that time, you could do a 12-minute scene and no one cared. Now, if it's 12 seconds or more, there's a problem.
But in that show, they'd look out for 12 minutes. They'd look out the window.
Well,
you know.
yeah, there's dialogue.